Alright, so welcome to the first fanfiction idea here on Patreon. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one because this is going to be a wrestling AU. Yeah, we're doing a straight-up wrestling AU fanfiction idea, which you're probably wondering, well, you've never talked about wrestling before. Honestly, I was in my, just to not go too much into detail, I was in my youth a huge fan of wrestling in my youth during the WWF era and the early when it transferred from WWF. I was watching the tail end of WWF and then then it went into WWE and I kind of dropped off from there. So, yeah. I was in that era of the heyday of the end days of WWF, and then when it went into WWE. I thought it was, but it's always kind of stuck with me, and I've picked up on some things with some friends who are wrestling fans, and this idea just kind of came to me as of late. So yeah, so let's talk about this. Now this story this fanfiction AU isn't really focused on someone from Gravity Falls or Owl House, although they are in here. This is more focused on characters from Amphibia. So in here we're focusing on Anne and Sasha. Anne and Sasha in this continuity are young girls who have dreamed about being divas in a wrestling circuit. They've always wanted to be part of the divas and all that in the wrestling circuit, and they've been working really hard, they've been training, they've been doing all of that, and finally, after one of their friends, Marcy, who is a writer for the show, it wasn't the WWE, what did I call it, I forget the name, but yeah, basically the company, Marcy is writing for the company, is one of the writers for the company. She managed to get him a shot at the job, and after doing the first premiere fight, they're pulled aside yeah, we like you guys a lot, but here's the thing. I know you, because here's the thing, Sasha and Anne came in as they wanted to be a tag team diva team, but they basically, the producers in the show were yeah, about that. We kind of felt maybe you, Anne, you be babyface, Sasha, you're a heel. Basically, that's wrestling term for babyface is good guy, heel is bad guy. That's wrestling lingo right there for you. So basically they're put on two different sides, and they're like, wait a minute, we wanted to be a tag team. It was well, Sasha just kind of gives off the bad girl vibe, and trust me, she does. Now, if you're wondering who's in charge of this whole company, it's Stan Pines. Stan is the president of the company. He's basically the Vince McMahon. He's literally just Vince McMahon, because of course Stan would be Vince McMahon. So that was kind of the fun part of doing this, is making, basically, because I was like, who's going to be the chairman of this company? I was like, oh, Stan, because of course he's literally like Vince McMahon. So yeah, Stan is there, and Dipper and Mabel are actually wrestlers are actually wrestlers. They are a tag team, and they're both, they used to be heels, but then they had a heel, the producers of the show had them do a heel turn and be good guys. Wendy's also there in the diva circuit. Wendy's actually the reason they look up, Anne and Sash look up to Wendy as an idol. And they're so and she is still a heel. She's still in the heel circuit. So she pretends to be just mean and all that, but at the same time, when the cameras are off and they're off stage, they're like, man, that was really fun, wasn't it? There's also Seuss. He's also a wrestler. He goes by Seuss the Moose. That's his wrestling name, is Seuss the Moose, and he puts on a literal moose head, and just charges into the ring. There's also, as for other characters, you have Ida, who is also Stan's ex-wife, who's also vying for the company. She's one of the head writers and one of the shareholders, so her and Stan are usually back and forth. You also have Ford, who's like one of the head writers he's actually the head writer for the show. As for other characters, you have Sprig. Sprig in here isn't a wrestler, but he is like a big fan of Anne. He is a huge fan of Anne, and like he sends letters every day to Anne, to being like, you're my favorite wrestler, you're awesome, you came from nothing, and it was like, it's just awesome. And Anne's like, oh, because Anne's parents didn't like the whole like they didn't want her to be a wrestler. So, but now here she is doing the wrestling circuit, and the whole like crux of the story is basically Anne and Sasha going on different treks. As a hero and villain in this. Not too dissimilar from the show. Grime is in here as well as a personal trainer for Sasha. And more or less he was like a big wrestler in the 80s. Grime was like a big wrestler in the 80s and now acts as like a personal trainer for her and also like helps develop her character as a villain. So yeah, now a lot of this is just like I said, this is the most fun I've had doing an AU, and I was just throwing ideas at the wall because again, not the biggest wrestling guy, and I can't wait for someone to be on here being like, "That's not how it goes." Well, it's kind of just made up for fun. But yeah, Wendy is not actually also the owner of the belt for the Diva Circuit. She's not the owner of the belt. That belongs to Sashi. Sashi is because of course Sashi would be the belt owner. Like she'd be the reigning Diva champ. And she takes her job as as a female wrestler seriously. You also have Penn Penn Zero in here. He's also a wrestler, and they are together. El Tigre, Manny Rivera. El Tigre is his actual wrestling name in this continuity. He's basically like the Rey Mysterio. He basically goes out there as like a luchador to fight. Which I thought it just made perfect sense of making because again, like that would like. I've seen fan art of that, of making Manny and taking his superhero persona and making it a lucha libre, like a luchador persona. So I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Zoe, aka Black Cuervo's here. She also is like his partner and lover. And she also Black Cuervo is her wrestling title. Who else did I have in here? But yeah, like I said, for the most part, the big thing with this is that it is Sasha and Anne's story, and them going on different treks. And while Anne thinks this is a lot of fun, we get to hang out with fans and all that, and get to do all this stuff, Sasha takes this more seriously because Sasha drives for perfection. As we all know, Sasha has this drive and desire for perfection, and she has nothing less. So she takes the whole wrestling thing to a whole other level. And she even tells Anne multiple times, "This is my life. If they're gonna keep me as a heel, I'll be a heel 24/7." So she basically takes the whole King Corbin route. God, as much as I am not a wrestling fan, I know so much. I have like bits and pieces of wrestling like trivia in here that I wanted to throw in here. That's why I never wrote this, because I'm not the biggest wrestling guy. So maybe one of you guys out there would want to do this as a fun wrestling AU story. So who else was in here? Because I had another fun one. Oh, I forgot to mention Dipper and Mabel's tag team name, Decipher. Get it? Decipher. That's their tag team name in the ring. I just thought that was so much fun. And when Seuss, Dipper, Mabel, and Wendy are all together, they call themselves the Deciphers, kind of like a Degeneration X kind of moniker. So anyway, so you guys tell me in the comments below, what do you guys think of this? Do you guys like it, hate it? Also, what characters could you see and what kind of wrestlers do you think they would be? Like heel or babyface or titles or stuff like that? And even moves, why not? Go crazy with this one. So, I am Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.